throw a jab and try and get. Good. 8, 9, 10. He's a natural. He is definitely a natural. Let's go for a body shot. There. So here we are today in my world, which is a boxing ring underneath the arches, so you may hear trains running past, but it's all about being authentic, being truthful, and embracing your environment and being the best version of yourself. So today, joining me, I have the incredible Niel Jones, who is the world, European, and British Latin dancer. I'm so honored to have you as my guest and share your story.
It's great to be here, especially to see like where you train and where you've been working out. This is good.
Absolutely.
I feel like I want to get into some bit boxing.
This is a sacred space. This is where I do all my best work.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a concept where you're sacred, but you're empowered at the same time, and bring in people like yourself, inspirational people that can share your story and really inspire others. So
good.
I'm so grateful that you've taken the time out to be here with us.
My pleasure. When you said to me, I was like, yes, when do you need me? I'll be here.
Thank you. So I want to start talking about, how did you get into, Latin dancing? I know you're trained in various different types of dance, such as tap, ballet, Latin. What inspired you? Because you started at the age of 6, I believe.
Yeah, it
was it younger?
It was kind of one of these things where my sister started dancing originally, and I think it was around about the age of 3. She started going to a ballet class, and because my sister actually just turned 40 today, so she's a year older than me, and she started doing ballet dancing, and it was just one of these things that my mum was taking her there, and I just got jealous. Whatever my sister was doing, I wanted to do the same thing. Sure. Now, my dad was in the army. My dad didn't like the idea that I was dancing. He wanted me playing football, boxing. He wanted me doing all of these types of things.
Sports.
Yeah, and I was doing everything, rugby, football, the lot. But I wanted to go along. I just said to myself, this is something I want to go and do as well. Sure. So I started off with a bit of ballet, and then again, my sister went into Latin and ballroom dancing. And at that point, I was doing a lot of judo.
Wow.
And football. But the thing was, in football, the only time you get a medal or a trophy is at a tournament, and our team wasn't amazing. So it was like maybe we won or second place or something like this. And with judo, it was like as you were going through, you get a little stripe on your belt, and then you're changing the colour of the belt. So I was doing that, but I was watching my sister come home with different trophies every week from a competition, and not just one. Sometimes she'd come home and she'd have 3 or 4 trophies, and that's what made me want to get into Latin and ballroom dancing, the fact of winning trophies.
Absolutely, because it's a sign of recognition, and you've got a goal and something to kind of drive you.
Yeah.
So it's great that she was able to inspire you to. Did you fall in love with it though? Did you instantly fall in love with?
I did. I think it was the way, I'm very logical how I think. So it was just understanding the basis. Like, it wasn't even about the music for me originally.
Sure.
It was purely about the movement and the logic of how you moved around. I kind of liked that. And then as it went on, I really started to enjoy the music and everything else about it. Yeah. And it wasn't until like later that it all changed for me, that it was less about the winning and actually more about how it inspired me and the different history and culture of all the dancers.
Absolutely. What did your friends make of you taking up Latin dancing?
I had a lot of friends who were dancers, so that helped.
Yeah.
But at school, even my teachers used to make fun of me, But the hard thing was when we were competing, especially in Latin ballroom, you'd have like fake tan, stuff like that, and they were I didn't really know much about it, so they were getting me to add all this fake tan on, and it was just that it would stay on you. Sure. But then I didn't want to put it on my face or on my hands, so it would only come up to here. And it just looked weird, you're at school and you've got like a shirt and tie on and then you're tanned up to there. Because the moment you put it on your face, it just looked ridiculous.
Sure.
And it wasn't until time went on again that I was like, why am I tanning? Like, I'm pale skin, ginger. Sure. Why would I be doing that? And it just came down to the stereotype that they wanted us to look Latino.
Oh, wow.
And that's why you were tan, or at that point there wasn't anybody with ginger hair in competitions. I was the only one, which helped me, because then, you know, everyone was like, oh, the redhead, and that's how I got remembered. But I was just like, no, I'm going to stay like this, because people were trying to dye my hair, you know, and then I was like, no, it's right. And then I stopped wearing the tan, and I started just going more natural.
Embraced who you are.
Exactly.
And let that speak for itself. I mean, so you started at a young age, you were inspired by your sister, and then what took you up to the next level? Because you started competing.
Yeah, I think it's all down to, I started doing quite well.
Wow.
I guess it's one of those things of, if you do something, you either, as soon as you start it, you just love it, you know, and you're like, oh, this is what I love doing, and you just continue no matter what. For me at the beginning, it wasn't the fact that I loved it, I just did so well at it that I started to learn to love it because of doing well. But then the moment when I didn't do so well, because there was a period, I think until I was about 12, I was doing great. At that point, I was in the top 2 of the male dancers in the whole of the UK. I'd never even thought about outside of the country. I only thought about the UK. And then all of a sudden I was doing that, and I saw a competition. There was couples coming from Russia, Ukraine, and I was like, they're incredible. So then I went to the next level, but the issue was I wasn't good enough for the next level. I needed a lot more work. But because I'd enjoyed winning so much, that was my drive to keep going. I remember even all the way up to like 16, 17, I used to go to this one place in Norbury to dance. It was like our mecca for the dancing. And I used to say to the guy that was doing the music on the night, I was like, you watch, one day I'm going to be a world champion. And I said, I don't care what it takes, I will be a world champion. And it was just because I was sat there watching the best dancers every night. They were from all around the world. They were the world champions, and I didn't have a partner at that point. But it didn't matter, and I wasn't then practicing. I was just watching and taking in what they were doing. And that then inspired me more to work harder.
Absolutely. Do you feel like just having role models and being able to see people in your world reach those heights gave you the motivation and inspiration that you needed in your life to aspire to be as good or better?
Yeah, I would say it was kind of a funny thing, because I remember having one chat, and this guy, he was, I want to say he was like top 4 of the world at the time. And I was doing whatever job to make money. I worked at McDonald's. I even had a stint where I worked at the Home Office, like filing and things like this. And I was talking to him, and he kind of put me on the spot, and he was like, who's your favorite Latin dancer in the world? And the guy who I was working for, he was a tailor. He was kind of like, come on, that's not fair. You're asking him this question right in front of you. And I remember just turning around and I said, well, depends. I said, I like what you do because of this, but I like that guy for this, and I like this couple because of this. And I said, there's no one there that I actually look up to and say is the full package.
Absolutely.
And he kind of looked at me and he was like, right, so when do you think you're going to get that full package? And I turned around to him and I went, I'm going to be the full package. I said, I take from all of you what I like and then that's going to be yourself. Me.
What are the obstacles you face to get to where you have now? I
would say, for me personally, it comes down to not fitting the norm. So in a Latin ballroom, well, especially Latin world, I don't look like I'm Latino. I'm pale skinned, I'm ginger. I didn't, like, my family didn't come from a dancing background. My dad's side were in the army. My mum's side are travellers. So it's, if anything, we're fighters. Like most of my brothers, or everyone, they ended up in the military or in the police or something like that. There was something that else went on, or sports. So I was one that stepped out of the norm. Being in the dancing industry, again, everybody was tan, dark hair. If anything, if they come from Scandinavia, then they were blonde, and then there was me. I was a redhead, and at that point I was always looking at everyone going, how can I fit in? But it wasn't until I went on, like I said to you, that I was just like, why do I have to fit in? This is who I'm going to be. there was no one for me to look at and go, oh, you know, he's got red hair and he does well. Or there was no one, so it was me. What's really great now is also like my partner Katia, we dance together for most of the time. She's Russian, but she's Asian. So there was never a mixture of a partnership. You would see two Asians dance together, two Europeans, but never a mixture. And it is so funny now when I look back at competitions, you're seeing more mixtures in partnerships. And it's normal for, like, for instance, a British dancer to dance with a Russian. But it was never normal for an Asian dancer to dance with somebody from Europe. Or it just, I don't know why, but it wasn't normal. Now, you're seeing people doing it. And it's great to see. And also, you're seeing redheads. They're not dyeing their hair anymore. So for me, when I like sit back, I go,
I was the first.
Yeah, I was the first one to do it. And hopefully I then inspired them to do it. So.
And it takes a level of courage to embrace yourself and think, well, actually, I'm not going to fit into the norm and the stereotypes, and to really cultivate that inner belief and instincts to pursue your passion. And it's great that you had that self-belief to think, actually, I'm going to be a pioneer in my field, which you have been. And, you know, so inspirational. So let's talk about this. So how has, you know, your dancing helped you in terms of building your character? Because I feel like, you know, it's the same with me with boxing, because it's given me so many life skills. It's built me through my failures, through enduring calamities and adversity. It's made me who I am. How has that been for you?
I think definitely if you think like at school, you know, being, like we always say, being ginger and then a dancer, that was double trouble. You know, that's what I'm after there. So nowadays it's a lot easier for me, because even if I'm working with TV and then something's happening and you're coming into limelight, it goes straight over the top of my head.
Sure.
Social media, when people start writing comments, there was some moments, but most of it just goes over my head, because I'm like, come on, I've heard worse throughout my life. You know, there's nothing you're going to say. Then I start realizing you're the one with the issues, not me.
Exactly.
So that, I think those things have helped. Again, through the dancing, respect to women, because most of my trainers were women. Like I've got my main coach was a male, but I worked with a lot of women, and they were powerful women, strong, know what they're talking about. And so I have so much respect for women, and also just how to communicate with somebody. That it's not, you know, you're not like, no, it's this way and that's it. You learn to communicate with your partner. You learn to communicate with different people. So there's so many skills within that partnership that helps later for me just to understand people.
Absolutely. I feel like the lessons I've learned through boxing has given me the impetus to kind of face life in general, and such as not giving up, perseverance, being accountable for myself, taking responsibility, because it's not my coach's job. I have to take responsibility. When I've lost a fight, it's about me. It's about how can I improve and how can I evolve past this. How do you deal with failure though? Because I feel like the greatest lessons I've learned in my journey was through failure. Those were the most life teaching moments for me that has helped me evolve and has helped me get to a world title. I have had to learn to embrace failure as part of my journey. I
would say exactly the same. I would say that through competing, when I didn't used to get the results, or I'd stay, like I said, our competitions, say we start with 500 dancers, the next round is cut in half, 250, and then it's cut in half again, and then we end up with like 96, 48, 24, 12, and 6. So a lot of the times, we were asked, I remember we were asked once from he's one of the top professionals, he created our action, his name was Donnie Burns. He's won, I think, 15 world titles. So he would be our Ali. He's up there. And I worked with him quite a few times. And he, I remember listening to one of his lectures, and he would ask people like, what do you do when you go into practice? What do you work on? And he asked somebody like, you got 5 dances to work on. Which dance do you work on? And I remember that dancer turned around and said, jive.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, why do you work on jive? And the dancer said, because it's my best dance. And he said, mistake. And he was like, why? He was like, if it's your best dance, you're already good at it.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to be working on what you're not good at.
My God,
so what's your worst dance? And the guy was like, paso doble. He said, if I
That's
was
the
you,
one.
I'd be working on my paso doble every single day. And that's what I used to do, because my jive was my best dance. And that's how we managed to make a final.
Yeah.
So I would tune it and make sure it was ready, and I had my opinion on it, but I always looked at my worst dance.
Sure.
And I spent all my time on my worst dance to understand why is it so bad. So I knew if there was another guy that paso was his best dance, I was like, I'm not going to beat him in his best dance, but I still need to get mine up higher.
So I see so many parallels within our both, arts, how they collide, and the mindset, and because the philosophy is still the same. Like you need to be driven, and it's great to have like a nemesis. They're not nemesis, but they're people that challenge you, because you think that the winning and losing is fractions. It's millimeters. Yeah. It's not even a big gap. It could be just a slight slip.
Yeah, and this is a funny thing, because actually all throughout my life, anyone I've gone against, they've always been my friends in the end, or even during it.
Because you respect each other.
I respect them so much, so I always have like a good place. Even with that couple that we were always like chasing, when we both turned professional, they went pro before us. When we were trying to break into the top 6 of the pro, we knew that there were certain dances. Well, when we went against each other, this was the thing. We always knew that we would win the jive, and we always won the samba. They always won the paso and the rumba, and it came down to the cha-cha. It came down to this one dance, who won the competition, So when we were then getting ready for this final, and in this final, you can go into the final only in one dance. So rumba was their best dance, and when we were getting it, it was like, they were like, well, we better get in for rumba. And then I turned around and went, well, I better get in for jive. We both didn't care about any other couple.
Sure.
And it was kind of funny when we were like chatting with each other on the side, waiting to go, and we both went in for those dances that we knew we were the best at. And then it was just about, how can we now improve our other dances to go to that next?
Bring up the whole standard.
Yeah.
Really. What was the biggest lesson you learned through your career, through dancing or outside dancing?
I think I'm constantly still learning now, but it is really about being true to yourself. That there's, I actually spoke about this in, I think it was like, we were talking about dating and things like this, and I just said, what's really important is to be selfish, but in a good way. Yeah. Because especially myself, I think about other people. I always try to make other people happy. I'm a performer, so I want to make sure that the people are watching me are smiling. My friends are happy, loved ones are happy. But then you start to realize you lose yourself. Because by just trying to make other people happy, you don't make yourself happy. But by making yourself happy, other people are happy.
And also you'll attract the right people into your life, because people with the same mindset, same kind of values, you will naturally be drawn to, and they'll be drawn to you. And because I can appreciate this completely as well, because sometimes I think, why am I attracting this in my life? But I have to then let go, because sometimes you outgrow certain people, and you have to be respectful within who you've become. And what your time and your value is, and how you share your gift to the world. So
and I think it comes down to, I remember hearing something, again, because I just like listening to different people, and this was about work, and someone said, they just asked a question, and it was to a guy, Gary V, who I like listening to his stuff, and they just said to him, how do you employ the right employee? Like, how do you get them? And he said, you're asking the wrong question. It's not how do you find the right employee, it's how do you get rid of the wrong ones. And I was like, it just blew my mind. I went, and at that point, I was creating a big show that I was putting on. And I had one person, one dancer, who was affecting everybody else with his negativity.
Pollution.
And next day I walked in and got rid of him. And everyone kind of looked at me because I wasn't that type of person, and they were like, what? And I said, no, he's bringing everything down. We need to get rid of him. And then that's slowly become my philosophy in life, that it's not about finding the right people. It's knowing how to get rid of them.
And it's learning how to say no to things. Because when you say no to things, you've actually respected yourself. And the yeses come. And you know what you just described is absolutely the same in the boxing world, because you can have one person that contaminates the whole group, and you need to be able to identify that. You can't have that negativity in that environment, especially when people are competing at an elite level. You need to bounce off each other, each other's energy, to bring out the best in all of us. So it's so important to have the right circles in place.
And I think what it is as well is it's an understanding. I say like circle of friends, you know, like this, and you've got the close ones and all like that, and then you've got the outside ones. It's also knowing that you've got words and you've got actions. Because there's a lot of people that give you the right words, and you hear those words, and it's things you want to hear, and you go,
But there's no congruence.
But there's no action. And when you look back and you go, I'm not going to listen to words anymore.
No.
I'm gonna look at the silence, and I'm gonna see the actions, what they give. And then when you look at the actions and you see the people there who haven't said anything to you, but they've given you the action, and you're like, you're in. And the other way, you're like,
absolutely.
See you later.
This is exactly where I am in my life at the moment, where I hear all the right words, but I need to see if they're congruent with what they're actually preaching and their values. And a lot of people can't live up to their own expectations. They speak a good game, but their actions contradict what they're saying, really. It's so interesting when you actually take a step back. You listen to people, and then you just let them reveal themselves. You don't even need to say anything.
No.
Just watch them and let them prove themselves. So how did Strictly come about?
Well, it started off because we were still competing. This is when we were still like top of our game, and it was Kevin Clifton, who was a friend of mine from a young age, and he contacted me once and just said, look, are you doing anything at the moment? And in the summer, like August, it's our off season. So I said, well, no, we have a bit of time off, we're just practicing. He was like, okay, there's a pro boy that's waiting for his visa. He's not in the country at the moment, so we're short on one guy just for rehearsals. Do you mind stepping in? Like, I've just told the producers that, you know, you're good and all like that. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. So I came on board, just was there in rehearsals. And then one of the producers just started speaking to me, just like, oh, what are you doing in your life? What are you interested in? Are you maybe interested in being part of Strictly? And at that point, I was a little bit like, well, I'm not sure because I'm still competing. And they were like, okay. And they also then asked me to help with some choreography, because they would bring in some of the best choreographers from around the world. But some of them are not Latin and ballroom based. So what they would do is I would assist them purely, and one of them at that point was called, she was called Mandy Moore, or she's still called Mandy Moore, and she was the choreographer for La La Land.
Wow.
So I assisted her first, and what would happen is she would just say, this is what I want, this type of movement, can you show me something within Latin that's similar? So I was like, yeah, okay. So I would then show her some things, and she would just say whether she liked it or not, and we got on really well. And I did that with some different choreographers, and I respected them so much, and they liked some of the things I was doing. And then after, I think it was like I did that for a few years, so behind the scenes. I also did some creations for some of the group numbers. And then they asked again, do you want to come on to Strictly? So we had a meeting, it was like, yeah, okay. And then first they invited Katia on because they were looking for a girl. And they said, well, we're not sure if we've got a place for you yet, but are you okay if Katia comes on and you don't? I was like, yeah. Like, don't worry, go for it. And I even said to her, like, look, don't turn this down. We were coming out of our career then. I was like, don't turn it down, do it. So she was like, yeah. And then they contacted me and said, look, you won't have a celeb this year, but we want to bring you on as a pro. I said, go for it. You know, so that was the beginning for me, really on Strictly, as a pro dancer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I've always been like that. I don't have an ego. Like, there's a lot of my friends who turn around and went, well, you didn't have a celeb. Like, why you've won this, you've got all these titles, and then you're going on to a show not as a main professional. And I just kind of turned around and went, you know, that's the life you want to lead. If you want to judge yourself by what you're getting. I said,
and whether you're dancing with a celeb or not, because again, it's about perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the meaning you assign to a situation. You don't let situations dictate to you. You empower it by how you see it.
Exactly.
And really, it was a great opportunity. You got to display your skills. And isn't that what it's about? You being involved and sharing your art, your creativity, your passion with the world.
Yeah, exactly. And those types of things, you know, you never know when they come around again.
Exactly.
And it's a great show. I have to say, like, I fell in love with the show. I fell in love with the whole team, not just the dancers, but just everyone behind the scenes, because you just see how passionate they are about the show. It's not a job for them. It becomes more than a job. And I like being around people like that. So that's why I've always said to them, whether I have a sled partner or I don't, you know, I got lucky. Judy Murray, people like this that I've worked with, who fantastic and still friends today. And then Alex Scott on the main show, like, great, you know. So I've had those moments and I like that. And I always said that even my mum was like, will you have a partner? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, why do you do it then if you don't know? I went, because I love the show. I said, for me, it's not about that. It's the moment I stop loving the show is the moment then I say it's not for me anymore. But I love the show, so yeah.
That's amazing. I feel like, where do you get your self-belief and that strength? Because obviously to step out the norm, it takes a certain level of self-belief and courage to be able to pursue that passion, because you don't know if you're going to be successful in that arena. You're just going and you're embracing, like you said, with the ginger hair, and you know, you didn't have a tan. You were standing out from the crowd. And not in a, you know, typical way. How did you embrace that? How did you find the strength to be able to do this? Friends
are always a great thing, because you do lose it every now and again. You know, you lose the belief in yourself, especially if things don't happen what you want to happen. The quickest thing to turn around is like, well, maybe I'm not as good at that thing I'm into. Or I started seeing it, that I was talking to one friend and I was like, oh, I'm working on this and I'm doing that and doing this. And she just turned around to me and said, but is that what you want to be doing? And I was like, what do you mean? She said, this is great, but do you really, is this your passion? Is this what you want to do? And then during that conversation, and we were talking on the phone for a good 3 hours, I was like, actually, no. And then she was like, what do you want to do? And we just started talking about that. And then I started realizing what I actually wanted to do. And I was like, wow, it was just, again, mind blowing, because then you turn around and go, wow, I'm doing something, or I'm thinking I'm doing things for the right reason.
Or you're just going along on the conventional path.
Exactly.
But really, do you really want to do that? Who are you? And it's discovering yourself and constantly keeping yourself in check, because every so often your goals and aspirations may change, and it's knowing that just because you did that 5 years ago doesn't mean you need to continue with that. It's being reflective and taking on board who you're becoming, because your instincts will guide you. And I guess you were fortunate that you had a friend that presented the right questions that allowed you to reflect on who you actually want to become at that moment in time.
And that's, I would say all of that is so true, and it's, you need those people around, like we said before, you need those right people around you, because for me, the place I'm in now, I don't need anyone around me who's like, have you seen my car? Have you seen this, what I've got? Look what I've got. I'm like, for me, there's more to life.
Absolutely.
Because the people I have like the greatest conversations with, some have those things, but if they have those things, they don't talk about it.
Exactly.
It's not important to them.
To be fair, you don't judge them on what they have. It's about who they are and what they bring to the table as a human being. Do they have compassion? Do they have empathy? Are they a friend? Are they going to give you the right advice even though you might not approve of it? It's those kind of skills that really lets you shine as an individual and helps you bring out the best in them as well.
And that energy is, if you've got that energy inside of you, that energy, like you said before, that attracts people with that energy. So it's really important to find that. And today I posted something, and it was something I read, and I don't know if it came from Bob Marley, but they had like the picture of Bob Marley, so I kind of redid it, and it was money is numbers.
Oh yes, I read this.
And numbers never end. So if for you money is happiness, you will never find happiness.
But this is what they say: if you're chasing money, you're constantly chasing. You're never present. You're never in the moment to say, you know, I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm in this moment and I'm satisfied and I'm content.
Yeah.
You're constantly going after things that own you rather than you owning them.
Yeah, yeah. But this is how I see everything. If I love dancing and I love creating, if I'm posting on something like TikTok and I'm posting dance on there, and then people are all about the money, turn around like, can you make money from that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, yeah, you can, but that's not why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for this reason. And then I said, and then if I'm doing it because I have a love for it, I will attract people that love it.
Absolutely.
But my end goal is not to have those millions of followers and all like that.
Yeah.
My end goal is because I enjoy doing it.
Yeah. Wow. What advice would you give to your younger self?
That's a hard one, because I'm a strong believer, you know, like what we kind of said at the beginning, that everything that's happened in our lives has happened for a reason, and that shaped us to be who we are. So I would always say to my younger self, go with the flow. Like what happens in your life, go with it, and you might not understand the meaning of it, and you know, some things might take you down to a place where you don't want to be, but you need that to take yourself back up again.
Absolutely.
And you know, like it would be the same thing in boxing. You get knocked out, and maybe that's the right time to learn that lesson. That's what I need to know to move yourself forward.
Absolutely.
And I'd say that. I have to actually say that one of my favourite movies, maybe it's not right to say to a boxer, but is Rocky.
I know, I love Rocky.
I think it was 2 weeks ago, I went through them all again.
But so did I.
But before every competition, I always used to sit and just watch Rocky. The night before I'd go to compete.
It's the motivation, isn't it? And the inspiration.
Incredible. It's so good.
It's the same, because this is what life is. It's a fight. Whether you're in the ring or outside the ring, it's a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
And you need to embrace every challenge without any fear. Just embrace it. It doesn't matter if you fail. You just need to keep going, because the rewards will come, and the people that actually win are the people that endure that.
Yeah, totally agree with that.
Oh, it's been great having you, and I'm so inspired by you. Honestly, your story is remarkable. The journey you've had. Thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure. It's been fun. It's been good.
You know, honestly, I find our conversation was just, you know, spectacular. I loved it. Thank you for sharing your
Thank you for inviting me
journey.
here.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Is that okay? He was so fascinating. Honestly, I could talk to you for hours, but then I realized